Jr. Very hard to finally get the Zapata County officials to give us a copy of all of the police body cam footage. The footage is absolutely horrific. It shows an unprovoked arrest with no probable cause, and then, much worse, it shows that the four deputies decided to body slam Mr. Barrientos face first towards a concrete floor. And what braced his fall and probably kept him from severe facial and spine injuries was his knee. So I am today uh, pleading with the county officials, the county commissioners, the sheriff himself, anyone that will listen in Zapata County to release that video and to make some statements, tell people what they intend to do to fix this, to make sure that no one else gets hurt, like Mr. Barrientos, and to make sure that the public knows that no one's going to tolerate a hyper-violent police force that's just taking it out on people because they can.
But still, police have stayed silent and refused to comment publicly about how they are handling this case. Even the mainstream media in Texas has been reluctant to call out law enforcement, despite the severity of the use of force we just revealed to you on your screen. So the process of keeping this story alive has been taken up by none other than a group of Texas cop watchers, First Amendment watchdogs who, despite being under pressure from law enforcement themselves, have continued to report on the story to keep us informed. And soon we will be joined by Corners News to talk about how he and other cop watchers have continued to put pressure on local law enforcement. But first, I'm going to check in with my reporting partner, Stephen Janis, who's been looking into the case and reaching out for comment. Stephen, thank you so much for joining me.
Tay, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So, Stephen, what is your take on how police are handling this investigation? What stands out to you?
Really, Tay, what stands out to me is that they're not handling it. I mean, we pulled a federal lawsuit that Mr. Barrientos filed, and it says basically that the officers lied in the statement of probable cause, that the officers had said that he was in a fighting stance and that he had threatened them. Now, I want you to watch that video and tell me if you see the officers, if you see Mr. Barrientos threatening anybody, because I certainly don't. But what's really interesting is there's a footnote that says that the case was referred to the Texas Rangers, who then referred it to the Department of Justice, but only about the lying on the statement of probable cause, which is bad in of itself, but nothing about the use of force being in any way reviewed by prosecutors or reviewed by the Texas Rangers, so really handling it poorly.
Now, you've been reaching out to the police for comment. What are they saying?
Well, it's really interesting. I called them and I said, can you respond to what happened? Can you respond to the lawsuit? They have said nothing. But let's remember, they stonewalled on releasing this body camera footage for almost a year. I'm not surprised they don't have any comment, but the lawsuit speaks for itself. They have yet to answer this in federal court. So right now, these allegations, which are numerous against this department, including the fact that they basically detached his leg from his body and then stood around and chuckled about it, have not yet had a court response. So right now, the agency is just stonewalling.
How does this stonewalling compare to other cases of police brutality that you've reported on that police have tried to cover up?
I feel like this is a classic case of wait and hope people forget, which is something that we saw in our hometown of Baltimore for years until the death of Freddie Gray in police custody. And the outrage was so, intense that they had to answer. But this is a classic case of wait, delay, obfuscate. Do whatever you can to make sure that people are no longer paying attention. Thank God that cop watchers are, and some people are refusing to let go of this story. But for now, I think the police are hoping that everyone will, and they certainly should.
And now we're joined by cop watcher and auditor Corners News, otherwise known as Ismael Rincon. Corners News, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me again.
Ismael, you have been instrumental in releasing information about an incredibly disturbing incident with the Zapata County Sheriff's Department. Can you tell me a little bit about the incident? Why were the sheriffs at Mr. Barrientos' home?
So this happened in Zapata County. It happened on April the 26th, I believe, 2022. And they were called for a domestic disturbance, according to their affidavit, to a domestic disturbance, and everything was calm and no violence, according to any of the parties. There was no violence at any time. So that's why they were called to that specific address.
So this seems to be a very calm encounter that we see on the body camera footage. What suddenly changed that he ended up suffering these horrific injuries.
Well, basically, he was talking, and one of the officers didn't like what he was saying or the way he was talking to him. He wasn't being disrespectful or anything. He was just being firm with what he was saying, and they claimed on video they were drinking, both of them. So I think that played some sort of a role in them treating him the way they did. But as far as violence, he never did anything violent or threatening or anything. In their report, he said that Mr. Barrientos squared up to the officer, and we don't see that ever on the body cam. Also, the injuries he suffered were severe. His knee bent the way the knee is not supposed to bend, and it tore his skin and ligaments and everything completely out. It was bleeding out in front of his own house.
What were the exact injuries that Mr. Barrientos suffered? What was the medical treatment rendered at the scene? And what surgery did he receive at the hospital?
So his bone ripped his skin, ligaments, muscle, everything, and Mr. Barrientos was bleeding out. They had to use 2 tourniquets to stop the bleeding. I would say if they wouldn't apply those tourniquets, it would have bled out in front of his house. So EMS responded. They took him to Laredo Medical Center because Zapata County doesn't have a hospital. So they took him to Laredo Medical Center in Laredo, Texas. They couldn't, or he needed more specialized care, so they transported him to Zapata, to a hospital in Zapata, and they couldn't save his leg, so they had to amputate his leg. Those was severe injury for not even being arrested, because he wasn't arrested. They claim on video he was not under arrest. Because EMS asked the Zapata County deputy, is he under arrest, or because they need to know that because if he's under arrest, they need to cuff him to the bed, to the they need to restrain him when somebody's under arrest, or they need some officer inside the ambulance. So they asked that question, and everybody said, no, he's not under arrest, he's not a threat. And after that fact, they decided to add the charges of resisting arrest, which we all know that's a secondary charge.
What did you see of the officer's response on the scene on the body-worn camera? How would you describe how they handled the injuries and the damage they caused him? What was the demeanor of the officers during the medical crisis?
I would say they were in shock. Most of them didn't even respond, didn't know how to respond. One of them, the one that applied the tourniquets, he appeared to be the most senior officer there. In my opinion, I really don't have their personal files or anything, but he took action right away. He applied the tourniquet, and he asked for a second tourniquet, and he applied the second one. And as far as the other deputy, they were just in shock. One of them even said, I think he said 18 years, and this is the first time this ever happens, or something similar to this happened.
Do you know what Mr. Barrientos was charged with and how those charges are being adjudicated?
Mr. Barrientos was charged after the fact. At that point, they told him, you're not under arrest. We can give you a ride wherever you want. So he was never under arrest. I'm not sure at what point they decided to add the charges to him. But eventually they dropped them because to start off with, resisting arrest is a secondary charge, and there's no elements to meet that crime.
What does civil rights attorney Kevin Green have to say about the process of getting and even releasing the body camera footage?
Mr. Green, Kevin Green is a civil rights attorney. He's based in Austin, Texas, he was saying that they had to file a suit in Zapata County for them to release it. They were trying to hold this it was for more than a year. This happened in April 2022, and they just released the body camera last week. So that says a lot from a department. They, instead of them trying to show the public what happened, and get some accountability or some responsibility for what happened. They were trying to hide it.
Have sheriffs involved in this case been charged or placed on leave? Has there been any disciplinary action taken?
No, I asked the attorney if there was any sort of criminal investigation going on against the deputies that participated in this detainment slash arrest. To his knowledge, no, there isn't any criminal investigation going on. The sheriff, I've been getting word from people living in Zapata County that when we posted the video, the sheriff didn't show up to work for a couple days. So there, and he's up to for re-election in 2024 again, and he's not giving interviews, he's not giving any statements, he's not showing up to work. So I mean, that speaks volumes.
So one question I have is, because the body-worn camera footage is so graphic and so brutal, has it been difficult to get this information out to the community?
The platforms we use, or the platforms I use, the most common platforms, YouTube and Facebook. And whenever there's something that graphic, it doesn't recommend it like other videos. So first of all, it's not monetized. YouTube doesn't really recommend videos that are not monetized because they want to get their cut. As far as reaching out to people, it is getting attention, but just by word of mouth, or they're sharing links. But as far as YouTube and Facebook recommending it, no, it's not, because it's first, it's not monetized. They don't recommend graphic videos, which in this case I think is the most graphic I've seen.
How is the community responding to the information you have released to the public about this case?
Well, a lot of them didn't know about the incident. They found out when we released the video and the press conference. So a lot of them weren't even aware of what was happening. And there's this one lieutenant that used to work in that county that complained about Martinez's actions. Martinez is the one that took down Mr. Barrientos. And before that incident, this lieutenant had complained to the sheriff, and the sheriff told him that there was nothing wrong, that he just had something against him. And after that, they fired the lieutenant because the lieutenant was complaining about the bad officers, and he got fired for that.
How important is it for citizens who are First Amendment auditors or citizen journalists with YouTube channels? How important is your role in getting information like this out to the public? I mean, what do you think you offer that your local mainstream media doesn't?
I'm very happy you asked this question. At the press conference, it was me, another citizen journalist from another county, from Starr County, which is next to Zapata, on the south end. And the other media that was there was the mainstream media from Laredo, local news. They were there with their big cameras and everything. They haven't posted anything yet. As far as I know, they haven't posted anything regarding this case. I really think we do play a pretty important part in getting this sort of news out to the public, because if it wasn't for us, they still wouldn't know what was happening. Usually, local media doesn't cover this type of incidents, brutalities or civil rights cases. They don't, because they're friends with the chief, or they're friends with city council members, or whatever the case may be. But
duty as a tech retina. And so I asked them, like, well, what else besides your eye hurt? Is anything else? No, just fine. I mean, I get every opportunity to explain to me, like, legs aren't working right, arms aren't working right. He came out of the truck looking good, like, walking pretty decent. A little heavy footed, but, like, he wasn't stumbling out. Do you believe he's intoxicated?
I believe he's unable to drive from whatever he has. I don't know
That's
about
a
alcohol.
medical emergency, or are we talking about intoxication?
Intoxicated on something, but I don't think alcohol.
Do you think you have, like, a medical emergency here? No. So, if it's not a medical emergency, is he normal, or would you believe possibly he's intoxicated or something?
I think
Okay.
he's intoxicated on something.
We're trying to get you a DRE at the jail. Because I don't think it's alcohol. I don't see any signs of alcohol.
Mhm.
I see some signs of the narcotic that he admitted to.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go that route. He also has a dog in the car. We're gonna attempt that.
Truck too, or just dog?
We'll cross that bridge first. Let's first get him taken care of, and then we'll address everything else.
That's right. Even though the officers wrote a statement of probable cause that Thomas was guilty of driving under the influence, they admitted on camera no less, that he was not drunk. The only substance in his system they suspected was a legally prescribed, non-narcotic, adult deficit attention disorder medication known as Adderall. And for that, without an apparently legally sufficient justification, Thomas was arrested.
Questions because you
We're
already
working, our decision's made.
So go and tell him more tests, put your hands on your back.
Go that route if they like to, or you can tell them point blank. I've done it both ways, depending on their engaging. If they like to be compliant, I'll tell them, hey, thank you, be advised. They'll be placed in the arrest room. I'll talk kid, turn and put your point back. If I don't believe that's going to work, I'll play the trigger. I'll be like, okay, turn on one more test, turn around for me. And that's what I'll do. I gauge the guy when I do that. I think we can go either direction with him.
Sir, you are being under arrest for driving intoxicated. I believe that you're unsafe to drive. Stand up, put your hands behind your back.
Turn around.
Turn around.
Do you have anybody at home who could come here and pick up your dog? And
No.
possibly your truck?
No.
No one at home?
No.
Okay.
Do you have a friend that could get your dog?
I don't know.
Can't think of anybody?
No, I mean, I'd have to make some phone calls.
If you, like I said, if you're willing to give me somebody to call, I'll personally call myself. If not, I'm gonna have to call my animal control officer, and they're gonna pick up your dog, and they're gonna put him in our shelter for the night. I'm trying to avoid that option.
I haven't had a drink in over 30 years.
I didn't say you were drinking,
I
sir.
didn't have a drug in over 30 years. Where's the animal control?
He works for my agency. I have to call him to come up here with me.
Where is he?
Where is this in Denton? About 5 minutes from our jail.
But even this highly questionable arrest was not the end of Thomas's ordeal. That's because the police, after admitting he was not drunk, filed a complaint against him at his job, which I'm showing you on the screen now. That complaint led to an internal affairs investigation, which then prompted his employer, a local fire department, to let him go. But that's not all the problems with this arrest, because we have been investigating and digging deeper into both the department and the county where it occurred. And what we have uncovered is that there was more behind the scenes driving police to make this arrest than is readily apparent. And that evidence shows just how far astray American policing can be from its overarching goal to keep us safe. So soon, we will be talking to Thomas about what he has endured since his arrest and how it has changed his life. But first, I'm joined by my reporting partner, Stephen Janis, who's been reaching out to police and, as already mentioned, investigating the motive that may have been driving police to charge Thomas. Stephen, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, Stephen, before we get into the behind-the-scenes maneuvering regarding this case, I want to do something kind of different. I want to administer a field sobriety test to you, just to make a point of how tricky these tests actually are, and to show that even in less stressful circumstances, they can be difficult to pass.
What? No.
Okay, you have two choices. Do the test, or stay outside
You know, Tay, I haven't had anything to drink, but still, I don't want to do a test.
all night.
Fair enough.
But first, have you had anything to drink?
No, I haven't had anything to drink. No. Tay, nope, I haven't drank a freaking thing.
Now, first, I want you to walk in a straight line by pacing one foot in front of the other, heel to toe, then turn around and walk back with your hands at your sides. Okay, not too good. So let's try balancing on 1 foot for 30 seconds and don't use your hands. Not too good, Stephen. Last chance. Touch your hand to your nose with your eyes closed, left then right then left. All right, that's not bad. 1 out of 3. Unfortunately, despite your claims to the contrary, I'm going to have to refer you to the nearest law enforcement agency for reporting while intoxicated.
You know what? I spend so much time outside, I don't care. Refer me to anyone who will give me a place to sleep for the night. So fine.
But put that on hold for a moment. So, you've been looking into the Denton Sheriff's Department and their DUI program. What have you found?
Well, as you can see what I'm showing on the screen now, Denton incentivizes DUI. They have this whole program. And one of the major parts of it that we found was that they actually incentivize officers to make arrests. They have a small section where they say they want to give them awards. So clearly, Denton has some incentivization of DUI arrests. That's in black and white, and you can see it right there.
So, did the Denton Sheriff have any comment about this arrest and why Thomas was charged? And what was it that you dug up in Denton County that might explain why police were so aggressive?
Well, I sent an email to the prosecutor because that was my main concern. Why did they even continue with this case when there was no sign of alcohol and the officers admitted on body camera? They should have dropped it right away. But what I did find is very interesting. Number one, Denton takes in about $2 million in fines from traffic arrests, traffic enforcement. And one thing I found in their budget that's really interesting, they said fines are a very important source of revenue. So just do the math. You have one thing in their sort of police procedure book that says, hey, we need to incentivize arrests. You have something in the budget that says we need fines. Put 2 and 2 together, you add it up, you get really crazy enforcement like I think we saw in this body camera footage. And that perhaps explains why they did what they did.
And now I'm joined by the man who was the subject of the unrelenting scrutiny of the Denton County Sheriffs to discuss how the arrest has impacted his life and the status of the case going forward. Thomas, thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you, Ty. I love your program.
Thank you, Thomas. I really appreciate that. So first, you mentioned something to me that could not be seen on the dash camera footage. How did the officers initially follow and approach you?
I'm coming up over a bridge, and once I kind of reach the top and come over the top, I notice there's a car sticking in the lane. The front of this vehicle sitting in the lane. And when I work, as a fireman, once you see that, you assume it's a wreck. We look for wrecks all the time. You get called out, you see cars all turned around facing the wrong way on the freeway, and that's what it reminded me of. So I just kind of tapped my brakes and slowed down, but I continued on, and that's when I noticed, it's a police car, and they just sat there. They didn't move. They didn't, as soon as I passed them, I could see them real aggressively spin around, and because he's facing me. When I passed him, they do a U-turn and come right up on me, real close. And so I thought, wow, they're going to pull me over. Well, he didn't pull me over. He's just following me. So when he hits his lights, I pull over. I'm ready to be pulled over because he's still behind me. Now, he's not right up on me like he was at the beginning, but it almost felt like he was trying to get me to do something or scare me or something,
So when the officers pulled you over, what did they say was the reason?
All they said was they asked me for my identification, driver's license, and my insurance or whatever. So while I'm getting that, she said, do you know how fast you were going? And I said, or she said, do you know the speed limit? And I said, I think it's 50. Is that right? She goes, yeah, it's 50. She goes, I said, well, how fast was I going? She goes, you were going a little faster than that. And I'm thinking, okay, a little faster than that. And so I'm thinking, well, are they going to give me a ticket for going a little faster than that? Like, what does that mean? 5 miles an hour over the speed limit or something like that? No, what I was thinking at the time was a little over the speed limit. That's it, you know, and how this would turn into an arrest, I'm just thinking, this is, you know, blew me away.
Okay, so the officers asked you to pull over to a second location, and you were polite and compliant while the officers asked you very personal questions. Did you have any idea of what was going to happen next?
When he said that I look really lethargic and zonked and all that, just from when I handed him my driver's license. And I mean, that was only about 30 seconds, maybe a minute. So nothing had started. Well, then when the second time they told me, he starts asking about like medications and medical history and all this stuff that I'm thinking, I know that the HIPAA laws for privacy, you know, but at the same time I'm thinking, well, I understand they're, you know, police officers, if someone's diabetic or something, they're going into a coma, and I've seen this happen, where they're on the freeway, and they literally one time a car turned around on a freeway going the opposite way. I get it, you know, this was a diabetic who was going through that and had lost their consciousness more or less, but was able to still drive the car, ended up crashing, and we got her out of the car or whatever, but I get it. So I just went ahead and answered, you know, those personal medical questions, but before that even happened, I was offering to them, because of my eye, I had this issue where it's blue now. You know, like, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a blue haze over it. If you ever looked at my mugshot, you can see that that is significant enough that you can't even see my pupil very well. Right, you would have to look real hard. You at least have to have a pen light and shine it in there to see my pupil. If you were looking for a reaction, well, they never did check my pupils. They checked my gaze. They're looking for the horizontal gaze. But that's not checking pupils. Pupils, you're going to check for a reaction. Kind of why I said more than I should have. Because looking back now, I shouldn't even have opened my mouth. I should have just told them, I don't talk to police.
Now, I apologize for having to bring this up, but you have two health conditions that could affect your responses on the DUI test. You're hard of hearing in one ear, and you have a detached retina in one eye. How do you think that impacted your reactions to the field sobriety test, and how do you think this impacted the officer's response to you?
Well, you know, he brings it up that I talk extremely slow. Said it quite a few times in the body cam footage, and I'm thinking, I can't even understand this guy. I checked just like one small clip. He said 7 words in 1 second, and they were all like, you know, as I was watching on the replay. And I'm thinking, yeah, I don't talk that fast, but I'm not sure I talk that slowly either, you know, so, but he kept bringing that up. The thing is about my hearing, though, that affected it too, and it also, because it's a neuroma, it's a tumor actually, so it affects your balance as well. And I haven't had really issues with it, but watching the replay on the video, that's why I was so surprised. I can't do this because I was flopping around trying to balance on one leg. No, I did it, but I was, you know, trying to, you know, having a balance like I'm on a high wire or something. And anyway, the point is that yes, my hearing affected me understanding him, and he's picking up every little detail. He's looking for anything. And so when I'm saying, you know, if I asked him to repeat something, he turned that into kind of like, there's something wrong with him, you know, be that as it may. It's clear to me they wanted a DWI from the word go.
So you complied with the field sobriety test. Were you surprised to discover how stringently they were judging you? I mean, were you surprised by their comments?
Well, I wasn't surprised what she said, because she's doing this for the first time. But if she saw a drug person doing these tests, she might have a different viewpoint of the whole thing. So I'm stone cold sober, and I'm actually very agile, you know. So I don't know if, you know, my hearing or my ear was better, or, you know, I had that tumor treated, so and I don't think it's gotten worse, but, you know, my balance was off, and yeah, I could pick out stuff, but he had her, you know, looking at every little thing, you know. It's just something I was not prepared for. In your mind, you think this is easy, but when you're doing it, it's a little different. I probably should practice my DWI field sobriety test every time I leave the house, because if that's what determines if I'm intoxicated or not, if they send my
you're gonna lose
blood
it no matter
to
what.
Austin, Texas, and it takes over 2 years to get back the results, then they're gonna, you know, charge me and convict me if they want. The fact that he keeps calling this, you know, the medication, he keeps calling it a prescription narcotic, and it's not a narcotic.
How long were you in jail, and what was your experience like, and what were the exact charges?
I was charged with DWI. I got to the jail probably, I think the video started about 6 p.m. I got to the jail about 7 p.m. I was there until 3:30 in the afternoon the next day. I had to go to an arraignment and make my plea. I had no access to a lawyer. I had no access to a phone. I couldn't call anyone, which surprised me. And not only that, but I was on my way home to get something to eat when this started, and so I was already hungry. Yeah, we get this little sandwich thing,
They
two
always
pieces of
do
white
this
bread
shit.
and a piece of bologna at about 11 o'clock. So I hadn't eaten in, you know, like since 7 in the morning or something, and then we got another one at about 4 o'clock in the morning. It's the same thing. 2 pieces of white bread and a piece of bologna. They're already punishing you for nothing. They made up their mind before they pull you over, you know, or the initial stop that they're going to take you in. Don't you need more evidence than just convict me if they want? The fact that he keeps calling this, you know, the medication, he keeps calling it a prescription narcotic. And it's not a narcotic.
How long were you in jail, and what was your experience like, and what were the exact charges?
I was charged with DWI. I got to the jail probably, I think the video started about 6 p.m. I got to the jail about 7 p.m. I was there until 3:30 in the afternoon the next day. I had to go to an arraignment and make my plea. I had no access to a lawyer. I had no access to a
I'm trying.
phone. I couldn't call anyone, which surprised me. And not only that, but I was on my way home to get something to eat when this started, and so I was already hungry. Yeah, we get this little sandwich thing, 2 pieces of white bread and a piece of bologna at about 11 o'clock. So I hadn't eaten in, you know, like since 7 in the morning or something, and then we got another one at about 4 o'clock in the morning. It's the same thing. 2 pieces of white bread and a piece of bologna. They're already punishing you for nothing. They made.
Okay, so right behind you, whoever you are, you can see the True Creator's work all around us. And the same thing that I'm doing over here on my screen here, but I'm doing it intentionally so you can see how much of the clouds I get, how much of a rock I get, how much of the moon I'm getting when I'm digitally collecting the EMNC from the system. It's the True Creator's work. It's all around us. So anyways, in your video, on this stupid thing here, unfortunately I have to deal with all this down here, but I can easily extract the imagery from all around you. So when I'm watching your video, I see it all. And this happens with all the videos I'm watching for, but it's so shitty because I got all the trees down here that are kind of a waste. Because lights and shadows, so I can't really get in at the trees or anything like that. But I certainly can in the clouds in most cases. So I'm just pointing that out before this video ends because I gotta shut this video off in a minute. But a lot of these guys, videos that are on there for the auditors, a lot of the auditors have that. All right, I gotta shut this video down, otherwise a battery's gonna die and I'll lose all the videos. I'll be back.